could be a reminder that charismatic leaders could absolutely shape the future of the city. Still remains to this day one of the most controversial moments in the Renaissance history of Florence. A reformer and a destroyer based on who you'd ask in the 15th century. In that time, many thought that Savonarola was actually chosen by God himself. A Dominican friar whose voice echoed through the palaces, streets and churches of the city, but also who reshaped Florence at the height of the Renaissance. A prophet, but also a fanatic. A reformer and a destroyer based on who you'd ask in the 15th century, but also today, and all of it unfolded right here in the center of Florence. Today we are uncovering one of the most turbulent and dramatic chapters in Florence's history, the rise and fall of Girolamo Savonarola. But before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe if you are new here and hit the bell button to get the notifications of all the new videos on my channel so that you don't miss anything. Also, please make sure to like and comment on this video, because the more you like and comment, the more people can find my channel and can discover all these stories and dark stories and mysteries and legends of Italy. And now, without further ado, I invite you with me to walk through this dark and really controversial part of Florence's history. Savonarola wasn't from Florence. He was born in Ferrara in 1452. Educated in theology, he joined the Dominican order young, and even his early writings already showed concern about the decay and moral corruption both in society and the church. Savonarola arrived to Florence in 1490 at the invitation of Lorenzo de' Medici, and I wonder if he ever regretted this decision, maybe even from his afterlife. At the time, Medici were the unofficial rulers of the city, patrons of the philosophers, the intellectuals, the artists, and the city was actually flourishing, especially on the artistic scene. But at the same time, it was politically unstable and the uncertainties about corruption were rising. Savonarola began preaching here at San Marco. At first, he was a quiet figure, but over time, his sermons grew stronger, calling out moral decline, predicting divine punishment, and warning Florence of the impending catastrophe. By the early 1490s, Florence was in an unstable situation. Lorenzo died in 1492 and his son Piero took over, but his leadership lacked the authority and diplomatic skills of his father. In this climate and after Piero's exile, Savonarola's sermons took on new meaning. He attracted the crowds of people, different crowds, nobles, artisans, merchants. People loved his clarity, his certainty, and the sense that he understood the city. In that time, many thought that Savonarola was actually chosen by God himself to guide the city in this new crisis. Guys, if you, like me, love all these stories and mysteries and legends, but also want to know about all the cool places in Florence, like this one, for example, where to have coffee or to have lunch, you know, where to go, what to see, what to visit, I have you covered with my Florence travel guide. It features more than 170 places to see and things to do here and also beyond the city as well, and a very convenient digital map that you can use offline as well. And right now it is discounted for the Black Friday, so hurry up to grab your copy. You will find the link in the description box, and there you will also find my Bologna travel guide, which is also discounted for the Black Friday. In 1494, everything changed when King of France Charles VIII invaded Italy and started moving south with an army that Florence was absolutely unprepared to face. Panic swept the city, left leaderless after the Medici exile, and that was the moment when Savonarola stepped forward. He preached that Florence would survive if it reformed itself morally and politically. Savonarola never held official political office, but nevertheless his influence was immense. He supported the creation of a broader republican government, the Great Council, based partly on the system already in place in Venice. This gave thousands of citizens a voice, differently from the more elitist and reduced councils of the Medici era. He supported the reforms aiming at reducing the corruption, supporting the poor, and restoring the civic virtues. And many Florentines genuinely believed that the city was entering a new, more just era, guided by the divine purpose. But alongside a political reform came a strict moral program. Savonarola preached against gambling, temptation, secular art, anything associated with excess, lust, and eventually art itself. The most dramatic moment came in 1497 with the so-called bonfires of the Vanity. Citizens were encouraged, and some would even say pressured, to bring the objects associated with luxury and immorality here to Piazza della Signoria and publicly burn them. The objects included cosmetics, mirrors, fine clothing, books, and even works of art. Some sources say that even Botticelli himself, a devout follower of Savonarola, brought some of his works and burned them here. It was supposed to symbolize the city purifying itself, but in reality it represented the clash between Savonarola's strict morality and the city's flourishing artistic world and artistic thought. It still remains to this day one of the most controversial moments in the Renaissance history of Florence. Savonarola's growing influence alarmed many powerful figures, among whom the newly elected Pope Alexander VI, who you may also know as Rodrigo Borgia. The Pope ordered Savonarola to stop preaching and then excommunicated him in 1497. But Savonarola refused to be silent and continued speaking to the Florentines. Meanwhile, Florence was suffering. Plague and economic instability, political tensions all took its toll on the citizens. Not everyone agreed with Savonarola's rigid morality and his stance against Rome. Critics grew bolder, Medici supporters began to resurface, and the tension in the city was becoming impossible to ignore. Just a year later, Savonarola's opponents challenged his legitimacy. A Franciscan friar proposed the trial by fire, a literal walk through flames, to prove that his claims were divinely inspired. The crowd gathered here in Piazza della Signoria for the spectacle, but complications arose immediately between the logistics and the weather. Hours passed as the fire was being prepared, but then it started to rain. The fire was extinguished, the show was over. Many took it as a sign that Savonarola's divine authority collapsed. He lost his chance at performing the miracle he's been promising all along. Within days, he was arrested. Under torture, he confessed to many accusations, although he later recanted, saying the confessions were forced. Nevertheless, Savonarola was accused of heresy. On May 23, 1498, right here in this place, Savonarola was hanged and then burned. His ashes was scattered into the Arno River to prevent any veneration, although in certain circles the devotion to him continued for centuries. Savonarola remains one of the most complex figures in the Renaissance history. He was a fighter of corruption, a political reformer, a man who pushed for broader popular participation, but at the same time he was the man whose moral severity clashed with the humanist ideals and Florence's artistic heritage, and also the one who was responsible for one of the darkest pages in Florentine history. To some, he was a visionary who sought justice, to others, just a fanatic who tried to reverse the cultural and intellectual achievements of his time. His story is really not simple, and that's what makes it so compelling. You know, it could be a reminder that charismatic leaders could absolutely shape the future of the city, for better or for worse. So thank you for walking with me through this chapter of the Florence's history. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week with a new story.